Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another in our series, Understanding the Qur'an. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace and blessings be on each and every one of you. We continue to look at Surah Al-Hadeed, the 57th chapter of the Qur'an, known as the chapter of iron. And we had looked at the verses 11 and 12 in our previous episode, wherein Allah shifted from discussing the sacrifices of this life for reward in the next to discussing part of that reward in the next, the ultimate success, that of paradise. And Allah described the point after resurrection and judgment where people will be walking in darkness, and the only light which will guide them will be their faith. Light guiding, running ahead of them, showing them the way, and to their right sides because of the book of good deeds. And they will be the one, after crossing the bridge, who will be welcomed into paradise. So after describing the righteous, the believers, whose success is achieved relatively quickly, Allah then shifts to the hypocrites, those, the munafiqun, those who pretended to be Muslims in this life, but who were really not Muslims. They were not believers. They used the name when it was convenient. They were referred to as Muslims. It was in their passport or whatever. But in fact, they were not believers in their hearts. And so their actions were against Islam. Maybe they would say, well, since we're Muslims by name, we have the Muslim name, paradise is guaranteed to us anyway. And that was like an afterthought. Anyway, Allah goes on to describe them in the 13th verse, saying,
يوم يقول المنافقون والمنافقات للذين آمنوا انظرونا نقتبس من نوركم قيل ارجعوا وراءكم فالتمسوا نورا فضرب بينهم بسور له باب باطنه فيه الرحمة وظاهره من قبله العذاب.
On the day when the hypocrites, men and women, will say to the believers, wait for us so we can get some of your light. It will be said, go back to the rear and seek light. Then a wall with a gate will be placed between them. Inside it will contain mercy, and outside it will be torment. Here Allah describes the state of the hypocrites, whose light is extinguished, and who were originally amongst the believers, but they are now being sifted out, and they see the believers going ahead with light, and they call out to them asking for help to get some of their light. Ibn Abbas, one of the leading companions of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who interpreted the Qur'an, he said, when the people are gathering in darkness, Allah will send light. And when the believers see the light, they will march towards it. This light will be the guide, or their guide, from Allah to paradise. When the hypocrites see the believers following the light, they will follow them. However, Allah will extinguish the light for the hypocrites, and this is when the hypocrites will call out to the believers saying, wait for us so we can get some of your light. But the reality is that there is no light for them. Simply because they were with them in this life, they were relatives, they were friends, they were neighbors, whatever. They were close in this life. That is of no benefit to them in the next. So they will be told to go back to the rear and to look. However, that's back where there is darkness, to go and find the light that they needed to have, that they needed to have generated by faith. And because they have generated no faith, there is no light there for them. That's the reality. We will not be able to help them. And this is the point for some people. They say, well, how can you, as a, say, believing person, when one of your relatives is among the hypocrites, they are not having light, how can you not want to help them? It would seem kind of heartless. Allah doesn't speak about the desire to help them, because on the Day of Judgment, these types of family ties will lose their meaning. We have ties in this world based on social experience, contact, relationships, etc. And these ties determine our love for people. Now, when we die and are resurrected, these ties change. We don't have those feelings that we had in this life. Those feelings of love and attachment will only be to those who believed. So we will not have that sense that we might think now our children, our aunts or relatives or whatever, these people who ended up becoming hypocrites and end up now going to hell, and we are the only ones going to paradise. We will not feel sorry. We will know that they deserved what they're getting. In fact, they deserve more, but Allah is merciful. So our whole way of looking will change. Just as in this life, when we see somebody who has done evil, we see them punished, then we feel they are getting their just rewards. This is easy for us to feel if it's a person not related to us at all. If a person is related to us, then we might have some other feelings inside our hearts. But to the person not related to us at all, we'll feel, well, this person is getting their just reward. They made this crime, they committed this evil, and they're being punished for it. This is correct. Well, in the same way, we can look at this situation in a detached way. In that life to come, after the resurrection, we will look at things in a similar way. Because those bonds of love and ties, etc., end with this world. They end in this world. When we come into the next, there's a whole other situation. And this is why Allah describes also the day of resurrection, that, everybody will be running for themselves. He said, Allah described it, يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ. A man will run from his brother, وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ, and from his mother and his father, وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَبَنِيهِ, and his wife and his children. This man will run from them. He won't have anything to do with them. They're coming, they want from him, can you help me? So he will not be concerned about them at all. His ties, his relationships, his responsibilities, his sense of concern, etc., is gone, finished. Everybody is for themselves. Everybody is concerned about themselves. They have no time to try to help anybody else. Just from that perspective alone, these relationships and ties have no meaning. Much less after the judgment, when it is all clear and people are now being guided. Guided because of their righteousness, their goodness, and the grace of Allah. Those who have lived dark lives, evil lives, they will find themselves in darkness at that time, and there will be no light for them. Light will be given to them temporarily to show them what they would have had they been righteous and good and had followed that path that they should have been followed. They should have followed as Allah has instructed them. So they will suffer. That is a situation which is something we need to reflect on. When we find ourselves in a room or an area which is completely dark, where we can see nothing around us. How fear comes into our hearts then, a sense of loss. Well, on that day it will be far greater. It will be far, many, many times greater, because it's dealing now with a consequence. That may be just an incident in our life. We find ourselves in a situation there, the fear and all the other things come to us, but it's not a lasting thing. It ends. We come back out of it. We're up and running again. We forget it, but we need to reflect on it. This description is something which Allah has put for our reflection, that we would not allow ourselves to find ourselves in such a situation. We would do what is necessary in this life to prevent that happening. This is the purpose. This is not just Allah telling us about the future. We can just look at these incidents or this information and be able to talk about it, and just, as general information, as they say, knowledge for the sake of knowledge. No. This is not knowledge for the sake of knowledge. Allah gives us this knowledge for the sake of practice, us to benefit from it, for it to have an impact on us, for it to change our lives, for it to direct our lives into righteousness. Those who have lived dark lives, evil lives, they will find themselves in darkness at that time, and there will be no light for them. Light will be given to them temporarily to show them what they would have had they been righteous and good and had followed that path that they should have been followed. They should have followed as Allah has instructed them. So they will suffer. That is a situation which is something we need to reflect on. When we find ourselves in a room or an area which is completely dark, where we can see nothing around us, how fear comes into our hearts then, a sense of loss. Well, on that day it will be far greater. It will be far, many, many times greater, because it's dealing now with a consequence. That may be just an incident in our life. We find ourselves in a situation there, the fear and all the other things come to us, but it's not a lasting thing. It ends. We come back out of it. We're up and running again. We forget it, but we need to reflect on it. This description is something which Allah has put for our reflection, that we would not allow ourselves to find ourselves in such a situation. We would do what is necessary in this life to prevent that happening. This is the purpose. This is not just Allah telling us about the future. We can just look at these incidents or this information and be able to talk about it, and just, as general information, as they say, knowledge for the sake of knowledge. No. This is not knowledge for the sake of knowledge. Allah gives us this knowledge for the sake of practice, us to benefit from it, for it to have an impact on us, for it to change our lives, for it to direct our lives into righteousness. So know that on that day, when people will be sent back, they will not be allowed to take from the light of the believers. They are on their own. A gate will be placed between them. On the inside of the gate, which is where the believers are, and they're going ahead with their light, there is mercy. But on the outside, there is punishment and torment, and that is the hellfire. This is something which each and every one of us should reflect on. There is no way that we should look at this lightly, pass over it, and not want to avoid the situation for ourselves. It is an evil situation, a hopeless situation, something which I pray God protects us from. But our own efforts will determine whether we are protected or not. Allah will not just protect us simply because we had Muslim names. or we knew the name of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or we might even have used it in prayers, for example. No. We will only be protected if we have done the deeds of the people of paradise with the right intention. This is the bottom line. We need to do the deeds of the people of paradise with the right intention. Do the good deeds. And those good deeds are those which were defined by Allah and His Messenger. Not deeds that we make up ourselves, so we innovate in the religion. No, the deeds which have been prescribed by Allah and His Messenger. We do those deeds for the sake of Allah. We're remembering Allah, doing it the way in which the Prophet Muhammad did it, and it will make the difference on that day. This is the promise of Allah. Let us believe in hell and in paradise. Let us think about this, put it in our hearts, and make paradise our goals and strive accordingly. Make the effort. As Allah said, وَمَنْ يُرِيدُ الْآخِرَةِ وَسَعَى لَهَا سَعْيَهَا. Allah says, whoever desires the life to come and strives for it, the correct striving, the one which will give the akhirah, that their efforts will be blessed. So that effort has to be there. It's not enough just merely to know about the akhirah, to know about paradise, to know that good deeds take you to paradise with the blessing of God. We have to make the effort that is going to get us there. Now Allah goes on to say in the 14th verse,
ينادونهم ألم نكن معكم قالوا بلى ولكنكم فتنتم أنفسكم وتربصتم وارتبتم وغرتكم الأماني حتى جاء أمر الله وغركم بالله الغرور.
The hypocrites will call out to the believers saying, were we not with you? The believers will reply, yes, but you led yourselves into temptations while awaiting our destruction and doubting. You are deluded by false desires, and the chief deceiver misled you concerning Allah until the command of Allah came to pass. The hypocrites, when they are blocked off, they will call out to the believers saying, weren't we with you? In other words, they were amongst the believers. They were in their midst. Shouldn't they get what the believers got? Why are they being separated out now? But the believers will point out to them, yes, you were with us, but you led yourselves into temptations. You got involved in evil. Qatada and Ibn Zayd and others among the students of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ had said that the statement of the hypocrites, were we not with you, meant, were we not with you in the life of this world, attending Friday prayers and congregational prayers? Did we not stand with you on Mount Arafah during Hajj, participate in battle by your side, and perform all types of acts of worship with you? That they were Muslims in practice. They did certain things which we define Muslims by, but they were hypocrites, meaning that these actions they were doing were rituals, but inside their hearts belief was missing. They were only doing these things because of custom. This is what everybody does. You're supposed to be a Muslim, so you do it. But there was no belief there. So these rituals did not transform their acts. They did not create the character of a true believer. Instead, these people would be involved in great evil while doing these same things. People often question, how can somebody pray 5 times a day? You know, non-Muslims oftentimes question this. How can we see these Muslims praying 5 times a day, but then right after the prayer they go out and they do some of the most terrible things? Lie, they cheat, they steal, they take bribes, so many things. How? What's the relationship between their prayer and their actions? Truly, what is the relationship? These are signs of hypocrisy, evidence of hypocrisy. And that tells us that we need to go back to our own intentions and question ourselves as to why are we doing the things that we do. Right back to our 5 times daily prayer. Why do we get up in the morning and pray at the different times of the day? Is it because we believe that Allah is real, paradise is real, hell is real, Muhammad ﷺ was real, his message was true? Is it because of that? Or is it because it's our habit that our parents raised us with? Or it's because we are not sure that these things may be real, but just in case they are real, we'll do this. If we're the latter and not the first, then we are in danger, great danger. And we need to reassess our own practices in the light of our beliefs. What is the essence of our belief? Are we for real? Do we truly believe in Allah, or do we not? With that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us in this segment of our program, Understanding the Qur'an, looking at Surah Al-Hadeed. And we were looking at the 14th verse towards the end of this episode. We'll continue it in the coming episodes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.